In the glittering, non-stop roar of Manhattan, there lived a man whose power was as vast as it was feared, Jett. He had been born into one of the city's oldest family dynasties. Roots sunk so deep that a single snap of his fingers could send both boardrooms and ballrooms into tremors. His eyes were dark fathoms of innate arrogance and reckless freedom. When the corner of his mouth lifted, the smile was half devil, half king, as though every heartbeat in the borough already answered to him. Then there was Lila, a woman whose beauty could topple empires, fresh as April blossoms one moment and blazing as midsummer the next. She lived for laughter, sunlight, and the easy company of friends who knew how to steal joy from an ordinary night. On an otherwise unremarkable evening, Lila met her bestie for drinks at club. Inside, strobes sliced through the dark and the bass hit like artillery. Bodies writhed on the dance floor in a single, sweating organism. She wore a simple, flirty little black dress. Each sway of her hips sent the hem fluttering. Her long, pale legs flickering under the lights like teasers for a movie that would never be released. Together she and her bestie threw their heads back, shouting with delight. Their giggles ricocheting off the ceiling, high above the crush. In club's VIP box, Jett lounged on a leather sofa, lazily swirling Bordeaux he no longer tasted. He had let a buddy drag him out, and boredom was already crusting over his gaze. But in one accidental sweep across the dance floor, Lila flared across his vision like a comet. Surprise and raw want flashed through him, an impulse he had never needed to name. He set the glass down, rose, and cut through the crowd with the certainty of a man used to parting seas. Lila was mid-spin when the air pressure changed around her. She glanced up and found Jett's face, breathtaking and brutal. Inches away, he closed the distance, closed a hand around her wrist, and pulled her off the floor without ceremony. Confusion sparked into panic. She yanked back, but his fingers were manacles of warm steel. "Who the hell are you? Let go of me," she yelled. Jett's name carried weight, yet he rarely wasted it on strangers. Of course she didn't recognize him. Ignoring her protests, he towed her into a quiet alcove where the music dulled to a murmur. He pinned her with a stare that felt like velvet and iron. "Stay with me. Whatever you want. I already own the keys." Lila gaped, convinced she'd bumped into a gorgeous psychopath. She tried to step back, but the wall was right there. Wow. Serious screws loose. Such a waste of a perfect face. Her gaze flicked over him, one sweep, then another, and she hated that he checked every box she didn't know she had. Jett stood tall and tapering. Black suit cut so sharply it could slice moonlight. Brows like drawn blades. Eyes deeper than night water. A nose that had never asked permission for anything. And lips curved in permanent, careless supremacy. "Like what you see," he drawled. "Come home with me. You can look all night." He leaned in, breath skating across her throat. "Get lost, and take your hands off me." But Jett had already decided the evening's ending. A nod to his bodyguards and Lila was escorted out, swept from the club and into the back of a waiting Maybach that purred toward the East Estate. The mansion flaunted every extravagance: gold leaf, baccarat chandeliers, marble that had seen more centuries than most nations, but to Lila it was gilded wire. He installed her in a suite fit for a princess: silk rugs, a velvet canopy bed, a bathroom bigger than her old apartment, and windows that refused to open. She tested the perimeter anyway, feigning admiration for the rose garden while calculating the height of the perimeter wall. A housekeeper noticed, and the next morning the garden gate wore a new brass padlock. 1 week bled into 2. Lila mapped guard rotations, studied camera angles, noted when the household went hushed because Jett had driven off for the city. Every Wednesday, the same pattern: he left before dawn and didn't return until after midnight, information she hoarded like ammunition. She also learned the security system rebooted at 6 a.m. sharp, causing a 3-second blackout on the South Corridor feed, an eternity if your heart was brave enough to bet on it. The night before the chosen morning, she stuffed a silk pouch with bobby pins, a mini flashlight, and a length of braided bedsheet, then slept with her shoes on. At the first pale stripe of sunrise, she slipped from the velvet canopy bed, cracked the door, and listened. The hall was a vacuum of hush. Even the antique grandfather clock seemed to hold its breath. On tiptoe she drifted to the laundry chute access, wide enough. She prayed. And slick with years of fabric softener residue. She pried the grill free. Slid the bundle in first. Then shoulders. Hips. Legs. Disappearing into the dark like a diver surrendering to the tide. She endured the crushing darkness of the cramped space. Crawling inch by agonizing inch through the air duct. The route she had rehearsed in her mind 100 times. The metallic walls kept scraping her skin. But she clenched her teeth and kept moving. At last she reached an exit near the edge of the East Estate. Close to the rose garden. She poked her head out. Scanned for watchers. And, finding none, jumped, landing in a soft crush of rose petals. She crouched low, using the sculpted hedges as cover, and sprinted toward the perimeter wall. She clawed her way up the stones, dropped to the far side, and bolted down the path she had mapped days earlier. She looked a wreck. But every bruise was worth it. No way can I go home, he's already had me investigated. By now Lila knew he was Manhattan's crown prince. She ran all the way into Hampton and vanished into the evening crowd. Need new clothes. She ducked into a tiny boutique. Changed her outfit. Twisted her hair into a different style, anything to break the trail. She boarded the Eastbrook coach and watched the scenery slide away. Her heart singing with freedom. She didn't know that the instant Jett realized she was gone he had unleashed every contact. Every dollar. Every favor. His eyes turned arctic. Sharp enough to freeze the air itself. He swept the crystal tumbler off his desk. The crash echoed like a gunshot through the hush. She dared to run. Lila. Wherever you flee. I'll drag you back. You belong to me. Only me. He forced himself to breathe. Then started pulling strings, quiet police assistants. His private army of investigators. Every camera feed in the state. He took the center seat in the command room. Gaze nailed to the wall of monitors. He missed nothing. Fingers drumming a martial beat that matched the hammering in his chest. Road cams. Facial recognition software. Credit card pings, an invisible net tightened across every highway. They locked on her within the hour. There you are. Lila. Just as the coach nosed into Eastbrook. A roadblock blossomed ahead and black-suited men fanned out. The door hissed open. Jett's lean frame filled the aperture. Fury burned in his stare. But beneath it glinted something like relief. Lila's heart plummeted, her perfect escape had failed. Seeing his delicate rose torn and muddy gutted him. He lifted her gently and carried her to the car. Stay with me. Lila. Is that so terrible? You've shredded my heart. Seeing you like this. She refused to answer. The silence cracked his control. He tipped her chin up, forcing her eyes to meet his. His other hand sealed against the base of her skull. And he crushed his mouth to hers. She shoved at his shoulders, useless. Her struggles only fanned the fire. The chauffeur quietly raised the privacy partition. When the kiss finally broke she was too weak to push him away. She could only submit as he took what he wanted. Her surrender thrilled him. Their ragged breaths braided together. Molten and raw. Outside. Ink-black clouds surged across the sky. Swallowing moon and stars. A blade of lightning slashed the dark. Thunder crashed like artillery. Lila huddled in the corner of the bedroom. Palms clamped over her ears. Each flash bleached her face white. Every roll of thunder flooded her eyes with terror. The door burst open. Jett filled the frame. Chest heaving, he had raced home through the storm. It was a Wednesday. He wasn't supposed to be at the estate. The forecast had promised clear skies. He had done his homework. He knew she feared thunder. His gaze swept the room and fixed on the trembling girl. He crossed the rug in 3 strides and folded her into his arms. He was furnace warm. One hand stroking her hair. The other anchoring her waist so she felt every steady beat of his heart. Lila. I'm right here. Nothing will hurt you. His murmur flowed against her ear. Each word a tether pulling her back from the panic. Her shaking slowed. She lifted her face to his. Even in the dim light his eyes burned bright. The concern there melted the last sliver of ice around her heart. Her pulse stuttered. Then raced. A new ache blooming beneath her ribs. Her stare darted between his eyes and his mouth. Her breath came shallow. Fast. He low. Word his head until their noses brushed. Their breaths mingled. The air in the tight space thick with desire. Lila's lips trembled. Inside she was at war. Part of her was unsure about this budding feeling. Another part craved closeness with raw, physical urgency. Jett sensed her hesitation. He stilled, holding her with nothing more than the fever in his eyes, waiting for her answer. A moment later some invisible force seemed to lift her chin. She tilted her face and brushed her mouth to his. Their lips met, soft, warm. Jett startled, then deepened the kiss. His palms rose to cradle her cheeks, stroking gently, yet soon panic flickered through Lila and she tried to push away. Jett tightened his arms just enough to keep her folded against him, the kiss unbroken. Still, he refused to force her. When her struggle grew fiercer, he released her and let the kiss end. Lila's face burned scarlet, her gaze shimmering with shyness and bewilderment. Jett studied her, a small, satisfied smile curving his lips. Already hungry for more, the room still carried the taste of what had passed. In its wake, their hearts had edged a fraction closer. Days slipped by, and in them Lila began to see the tenderness buried beneath Jett's steel. He might rule with ruthless will, yet for her he was thorough, gentle, almost reverent. He cooked the dishes she loved, sat bedside through every feverish hour when illness claimed her. Without noticing, Lila's own feelings shifted. She started listening for his step, missing him when meetings pulled him away. But the old fear, the ache for open skies, still pulsed inside her, and she had no map for the maze of her own heart. One evening Jett swept her to a gala so grand the ballroom seemed to inhale Manhattan's skyline. Lila was stunned he would show her off so openly. "Lila, I'm learning. Give me time to change." Their eyes locked, bright with vow. Under crystal chandeliers, Manhattan's elite glittered. Lila glided among them in white silk that made her look sky-sent. Beauty and poise drew every gaze, guests, photographers, even Chase, heir to the rival dynasty that had sparred with Jetts for decades. Chase cut through the crowd, bowed with mocking flourish, and asked for a dance. Lila meant to refuse, but courtesy won. On the floor his hand clamped her waist, eyes glittering with calculated provocation. Jett, returning from a call, saw, and ice cracked into fury. He strode forward, shoved Chase aside, and pulled her close. "She's mine. Back off." Chase only smirked. "Think you can keep her forever? One day she'll walk." Ignoring him, Jett led Lila out of the ballroom, past whispers and popping flashbulbs. Back at the East Estate he guided her upstairs, to the master bedroom. Caged against the wall, she felt the storm in him, madness, possession, and something perilously close to plea. "You belong to me. No one takes you." Fear spiked, yet exhilaration surged beneath it. She knew she was already his. Completely. She traced the sharp line of his jaw. "I won't leave." Joy detonated across his face like midnight fireworks. He crushed her to him, as though with that embrace he owned the turning world. In the hush of the lavish room, the crystal chandelier spilled amber light over velvet and gilt. Jett laid her on the bed, the duvet cool against her back. His gaze, living flame, pinned hers as he bent slowly, lips trailing fire along her throat, scattering delicate, teasing kisses. Lila shivered. Every soft exhale sounded loud in the dim. His hands glided over her waist, hip, thigh, gentle yet sure, as if memorizing territory that was already his. Color flooded her cheeks. She twined her arms around his neck and offered her mouth. They tangled, tongue and breath, exploration and answer, until each inhale tasted of the other. His weight settled over her. Heartbeats hammered chest to chest, but restraint still ruled him. He brushed the hair from her forehead and pressed tender kisses to brow, to nose, withholding the final claim. Bodies poised on the burning edge, they savored the hush before surrender, the intimacy sharper than any fulfillment. In the hush, devotion crystallized, two souls inching toward fusion, swimming in the private universe of silk and half-light. When Jett chose to make their bond public, Manhattan itself seemed to shiver. He rented every Giant Times in the busiest blocks of Midtown, and the screens rotated through photos of him and Lila. There was the moment he gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and the way Lila rested her head on his shoulder with a soft smile. The couple in the pictures looked like a prince and princess stepped out of a fairy tale, joy spilling over the frames. At the same time, the hottest hashtags on every social feed were hijacked by their romance. Hashtag Jett Lila shot to viral legend, and the fever kept climbing. The day they were to meet the parents, Jett brought Lila to the palace-like family mansion. The house had been dressed to the nines. Priceless blooms flown in from every continent, massed into a dazzling sea of color. Jett's parents sat in the ornate drawing room, regal yet kindly the instant their eyes landed on Lila. Lila's palms were damp with nerves. Jett locked his fingers through hers, and poured his strength into her. After an hour of talk both sets of parents beamed. pleased, satisfied, and blessed the match. The engagement gala was opulence taken to its zenith. Inside the fabled Sterling, just outside Manhattan, rose petals formed a long scarlet aisle flanked by Ming vases stuffed with rare blossoms. Power players from every sphere poured in. The gifts they brought towered like a miniature mountain, every piece a museum-worthy treasure. Jett himself slid the blazing custom solitaire onto Lila's finger. The diamond was flawless. In the sun it scattered light fierce enough to blind. When wedding day arrived, the whole city seemed steeped in their joy. They wed in an ancient, soaring cathedral whose church bells pealed overhead. Lila glided down the aisle in a dream gown sewn by the city's top couturier, the bodice paved with diamond chips and seed pearls that flashed holy sparks with every step. A train the length of a city block was carried by a squad of flower girls. Jett stood waiting in hand-tailored formalwear sharp enough to cut glass. Before the priest, they vowed forever and traded rings. The reception unfolded in a superlux hotel where 2,000 guests dined on Michelin-level cuisine while a jaw-dropping troupe performed. Night fell. Jett ushered Lila onto the private jet, and they lifted off for a round-the-world honeymoon. Under a canopy of city lights, Jett carried Lila over the threshold of the bridal suite lit by scented candles and strewn with rose petals. The air was thick with sweet, reckless promise. Candleflame painted Lila's blushing face even softer. He laid her on the velvet canopy bed already quilted with petals. His gaze burned with hunger and reverence, as though she were the single priceless relic left on earth. Slowly he bent, fingers gliding through her hair. His lips drifted, forehead, eyelids, cheeks, light as down. A tremor rippled through her. Her pulse drummed loud in the hush. One by one he freed the silk buttons of her gown, each pop matching the quickening lift of her breath. When snow-white skin met candlelight, he sucked in a breath, wonder and lust colliding. His mouth wandered lower, lingering at the hollow of her collarbone until a moan slipped from her throat. Body to body, heat to heat, he settled over her. His palms charted every curve with tender certainty. Under his touch she melted. Instinct rising, she shifted her hips, shy and restless, and accidentally brushed the hard length of him. A low grunt tore from his chest, raw with need. Crimson flooded her cheeks. Her hands fluttered in modest protest, then surrendered, looping around his neck. Eyes locked. Time froze, only hunger and love raging between them. A sharp sting furrowed her brow. Jett, it hurts. He stilled at once, sweat beading his temples, and rasped against her ear, Lila, I'm sorry. I'll be gentle. His voice shook with restraint and adoration. He watched her, heart swelling. Haze clouded her gaze. She lifted her mouth to his, tongues tangling in fierce, breathless devotion. In the weave of love and desire, they reached the place where soul and skin fuse. Every breath, every motion, was a vow deeper than words until the tide of bliss crashed over them and swept them under. When the storm quieted, they lay tangled, each the other's only world from that night on.